Hello, everybody. Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Please, if anybody can hear me, just confirm in the comment section that you can. I'll be glad to know that you're here and that you can hear me. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for confirming that you can hear me. Thank you. I can see everyone joining. Yeah, of course, I know you're surprised, right? You're probably surprised to see my face here today rather than Mr. Oliver. I know you're surprised to see my face, but then just for context, I'm here representing Mr. Oliver for today's session. So he had some little challenges, and because of that, he asked me to step up, to step in for him in this particular session. And trust me, it's going to be an amazing one, right? It's going to be a really amazing session. So if you're joining here, just drop in the comment section where you're joining us from. I'll be glad to know where you're joining us from, which city you're joining us from, which country you're joining us from, whether it's from Yaoundé, Cameroon, any African country, or just anywhere in Europe, in the US. I'll be glad to know where you're joining us from, right? So wherever you're joining us from, quickly drop it in the chat. Um, so that I know you're around. By the way, my name is Simplicity, right? Simplicity is a businessman, entrepreneur, digital marketing analyst, trainer. I've trained people across Africa. I always tell people that I'm not sure there is any African country in which I've not trained at least 100 people. So I'll not be surprised if some of you, even on this call, know me, right? Today, I'm stepping in for my mentor, Mr. Oliver Shum, who, because of his busy schedule, asked me to come in for this session, right? It's going to be an amazing one. Now, quickly, we are talking about how to turn your skill, right, into streams of income. That's what we are talking about. And just before that, I wish to sincerely apologize for us starting late. We ought to have started probably like 20 minutes before, but we had some technical issues, and that's the reason why we started quite late, right? And this is a special hello to all those who will be listening to the video later, right? Because I know that some more people will be listening to the video later. So if you're one of them, please drop something in the comment section when you listen to this, right? Just so that I know that you listened to the video, right? Now, quickly, we are looking at how to turn your skill into a source of income, right? That's what we are looking at today. How do you turn your skill into a source of income? Now, we have to start by knowing what a skill is, right? Definitely, we have to start by defining what a skill is, right? And what is a skill? Now, the simplest definition of a skill, right, is that a skill is the ability to do something well. Now, I try to really go with the simplest definition. A skill is simply the ability to do something well, right? Now, there are usually two kinds of skills, right? This is really from a general perspective. There are usually two kinds of skills. We have what we call hard skills, and we have what we call soft skills. So hard skills are usually specific, teachable abilities needed at job site, like programming, accounting, whereas soft skills are usually interpersonal traits, like communication, like teamwork, like influence. So hard skills are usually those teachable abilities, that are specific, that usually can be touched, can be seen, can be experienced. You see that. Whereas soft skills are usually interpersonal, right? And so the very first question I want to ask you in this session is, what skill do you have? That's the very first question I want to ask, because we cannot talk about turning a skill into an income if you don't even know the skill that you have. So I want you to take a pen. So I'm going to do today like my mentor, Mr. Oliver. He usually says, take a pen and take a book, write it down. So we're going to do exactly like he does, right? So take a pen, take a book, just like Mr. Oliver's does, and then write down for me the skills that you have. Ask yourself the question, what skills do I have? And write them down. Do that quickly. Now, some of you can drop in the comment section the skills that you have, just so that I can see. Now, by the way, I've noticed that a lot of time when we talk about skills, right, people usually think about overly big things, like programming, like engineering. You see, but there are very little skills that people have, which they usually don't consider very important. For example, little skills like cooking. Do you know that cooking is a skill? Do you know that smiling is a skill? You know, do you know that table etiquette is a skill? Do you know that dressing well is a skill? There are some of you who dress exceptionally well. Now, you may think it's not a skill. I assure you it's a skill. There are doors that will open for you just because of how you look. There are contracts that you're going to have just because of how you look. Do you know that smelling good is a skill? Has it not happened to you sometime that you come close to an individual, to a guy or a lady, and this person is smelling so good, you don't feel like leaving? Have you ever given a hug to someone who is smelling so good, and you're like, my God, I don't want to let this person go, right? Why? Because smelling good is a skill. You see, smiling is a skill. I mean, ask a hostess. A hostess will tell you that smiling is a whole skill. So sometimes when we say, what are the skills that you have? You may be overthinking, whereas there are basic skills, things that come naturally to you. What are the things that come naturally to you? For some of you, it's just speaking. You're more comfortable speaking. You're comfortable addressing people. For some of you, it's order, organizing things, planning things. For some of you, you're just beautiful. Do you know there are people who are born with natural beauty? There are people who are just naturally handsome. That is something you have. So I want you to do something for me. Take a pen, ask yourself the question, what do I have as a skill? What do I have? And write it down, right? Write it down. What skill do I have? Write it down. That's the first question that I'm going to ask you to do. Now, the second thing I'm going to ask you to do is to ask yourself the question, how do I improve on this skill that I have? Now, the reason why you have to improve on your skill is because you don't want to market a skill that is not excellent. You see that? Nobody will buy your skill if it is not refined. So once you know the skill you have, the next thing you want to do is to improve on that skill. So ask yourself the question, this skill that I have, oh, I notice I can talk well. I notice I can dress well. I notice I can program well. I notice I can do this well. Now, the next question is, what can I do better? How can I improve this skill that I already have? How do I improve it? How do I make it better? You see that? Now, there are many ways of improving a skill, many ways. And I tell people there is always room to improve every skill, always room. One time a lady was telling me, she cooks so well. She told me she's passionate about cooking. Then I asked her a question. Can you cook for the president? Can you cook for the governor? If you were invited in the president's house to cook, can you cook a meal for the president? Can you serve a president? Do you understand etiquette, table etiquette? Now, I'm going to give an example. One time I was invited to the house of a very rich personality. Well, here in Cameroon, I'm not going to call that person's name, right? I was invited in that person's house, and guess what? When I was served my meal, right? I noticed that the meal that I was served had about three knives, you know, it had about four glasses. There were about four glasses, there were about two spoons, and then immediately I got lost. Right? I got lost because I didn't know that there is a glass for wine, there is a glass for water. There were about four glasses, and I didn't know the use of the glasses. I didn't even know which hand to use to cut the meat, which knife is used for the meat, which fork is used. Like a lot that I did not know about table etiquette. So sometimes when you come and tell me you know how to cook, I want to ask you, can you serve a president? If they invited you to the White House, can you serve there? You see, you tell me that you're good at public speaking, or public speaking is a skill that you have. Can you speak in the White House? Can you speak for major events? Can you give presidential speeches? You see that? So when you identify the skill that you have, the next thing is to improve it, because you don't want to market skill that is not of quality. You don't want to do it. Now, quickly, what are the different ways you can do to improve on the skill? What are the different ways? The first way to improve on a skill is through education, right? Education is the first way or the first method to improve on a skill. Now, there are two kinds of education generally. There is what we call formal education, which is usually systemized education, right? Formal education really means systemized education. It's a form of education where usually at the end, you are rewarded with probably a certificate or a recognition or an award, and it's usually within a specific time bound. That's what we call formal education, right? That's where you go to school, you get a degree, you get a master's. So that is a way to improve on your skill. You can tell yourself, okay, now that I can speak, I have the public speaking skill. I'm going to enroll into a public speaking school, to improve on my skill. That's the first way. Now, the second form of education is what we call informal education. Informal education is where you decide to learn by yourself. And I tell people today that there is no reason why in this age a young person should be ignorant. There is no reason. Internet is full of free information. Like I wonder why someone in this age will not have the barest minimum in terms of knowledge. I sincerely wonder why. There is no excuse. There is free content on YouTube. There is free content on Instagram. Today, even big schools like Harvard, Cambridge, they give out free courses. Like, what do you want to learn? It's online and it's free. The best schools are teaching the things that you want to learn, and they are putting the course out there for free. Why don't you know them? You see, what is stopping you from knowing them? You see that? So you can go by informal education, where you take upon yourself to improve on the skill that you already have, to scale your skill in a way that a nation can depend on it, in a way that authorities can depend on it. You see, I tell people that if your skill is only useful for your environment, for your two or three are gathered, the Bible says where two or three are gathered. If your skill is only for where two or three are gathered, then you are failed, even as a Christian, because Jesus told us that the mandate was global. You see, we can't afford to remain in our cities. We can't afford to be local champions, because Jesus gave us a global mandate. He said from Judea, he said to Samaria, and to the whole earth. So you have to be relevant, not just in Bamenda, not just in Boya, not just in Douala. You have to be relevant in Cameroon. You have to be relevant in South Africa. You have to be relevant in Europe. You have to be relevant in every single continent. If you are not relevant in every single continent, you are failing yourself, you are failing your generation, because the mandate was a global one. You see, the mandate that Jesus gave us was a global one. And so you will have to educate yourself. You see that that's the first way of improving your skill, through education, either formal or informal. Now, the second way of educating yourself is through mentorship. That's the second way to improve your skill, through mentorship. You see, and that's why I'm so happy for Mr. Oliver. You see, Mr. Oliver is, first of all, a mentor for me, and then he has mentored thousands of individuals all over Africa. You see, I tell people a lot of times that one of the easiest ways to learn something, right, is to look for someone who is already doing what you're doing, and then give that person your life for the next 6 months, for the next 1 year, for the next 2 years. For example, if you want to learn how to cook, or if you want to be an excellent cook, if you want to be an excellent content creator, don't start thinking, how will I do it? No, 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 no. Don't think. Just look for someone, right, who is excellent in that field, and work with the person, volunteer with the person, give your life to the person for the next 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, and tell me whether you will not become better. You will obviously become better. You see that? So, one of the easiest ways of improving your skill is through mentorship. Get a mentor, work with a mentor. Now, am I telling you that it's going to be easy? No. Sometimes mentors are hard. Sometimes mentors are difficult. Sometimes mentors even look insensitive. But I assure you, it's for your good. When you know what you're looking for, you're going to go for it and you're going to get it. You see that? So that's the second way, through mentorship. The third way to improve on your skill. Now, the reason I'm taking time to show you how to improve on your skill is because I'm going to show you how to market your skill. And I want to make sure that you're not marketing mediocrity. You see, because the world doesn't understand mediocrity. Once you are a mediocre, no one wants to listen to you. And the world is becoming more and more competitive. So if you're not excellent, no one wants to listen to you. You see that? So the next way to improve on that skill is through mentorship. Another way to improve on your skill is through paid conferences, paid classes, paid books. You see, one of the things I've noticed, which I think is a serious mistake, is that people only go for free classes. I've noticed that people only go for things that are free. I don't know why. And I feel like I've seen it a lot, especially in African countries. When you say it's a free event, the event is packed. When you say it's a free program, it's packed. But when you add a price tag to it, nobody wants to come. I don't know. It looks like people have obsession for free books, free classes. See, let me tell you something. If you're someone who only listens to free conferences, free classes, now I'm not saying that there is something wrong with free conferences. No, free conferences are amazing, free classes are amazing. But I assure you, if all you do is free conferences, you're not going to learn. Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a sincere question. Do you think that if Dangote, right, was to write a book where he was showing the secrets that turned him into the Dangote that he is today, do you think he will make the book free? There is no way that book will be free. I'm just trying to let you know that free books have limited materials. Free conferences have limited materials, whether you like it or not. And let me tell you, get used to going for paid conferences. And sometimes when you buy books, right, it's not even primarily for the knowledge. I've bought books of so many people. I remember recently I spent over 170 something thousand on books. Now, I assure you, it wasn't even primarily the knowledge. Of course, I read them, but you see, it was more because I wanted to have access to the person who wrote the book. You see, one of the advantage of buying books and attending free conferences is that you have access to premium network. If you attend a conference that costs, for example, 25,000, 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, usually what happens is that you create for yourself a network of people who have money or who have income. And we're going to talk about that. And so it becomes easier for you to have the relationships needed to sustain your business. You see that? So go for paid conferences, go for paid events. And by the way, just so you know, I think it's next week, right? Next week we are going to be putting up a paid mentorship program, right? It's going to be costing about 10,000 francs. I'm still to confirm it. It's going to be a mentorship program with Mr. Oliver Shaw. I strongly recommend that you pay for that mentorship, right? Because I tell you, paid conferences gives you much more than the free ones. So that's the third thing, right? Now, the fourth method to improve on your skill is through practice. A lot of people don't practice, a lot of people, and they don't practice usually because of the fear of failure. For example, someone will tell you he's a content creator, he's a public speaker, but he has never created content, or he creates content once every 3 months. That's very wrong. You see, you will not be good if you don't practice. And guess what? When you practice, you will fail. You see, one of the things about practicing is that practicing teaches you how to fail. When you practice, you will fail and fail and fail until you become good at it. You see, so one of the things you want to do is to practice. If you believe that you have the skill of public speaking, guess what? My next recommendation for you is that in the next 100 days, you have to be producing one video every day. How can you tell me that you are working towards becoming a speaker, but you don't produce any videos, you don't post any videos, you say, no, I don't want my face to be online, nobody should talk to me? No, it will never happen. A lot of people don't practice because of the fear of failure. And guess what? You will fail over and over. I've learned over time that success is the accumulation of failure. You fail and fail and fail and fail till you finally succeed. That's how it works. So learn how to practice, learn how to be skillful. Your talent is not enough, your gift is not enough. In fact, you see, there's a difference. Maybe I should explain that. There is a difference between a skill well, a difference between a skill, a gift, and a talent. They are not the same thing. You see, usually a talent is what you are born with. Whatever natural ability you're born with is a talent. For example, you're going to notice that talents are usually even hereditary. You're going to notice that maybe because your dad was a good speaker, you are a good speaker. Maybe your dad was good in a certain business, you've become good at it. There are things you're born naturally with them. They are called talents, right? Then we have what we call gifts. Now, and this is in the Christian context, gifts are usually given by the Holy Spirit. You see? So the gift is an empowerment given by the Holy Spirit. So you're going to hear about the gift of healing, the gift of deliverance, the gift of counseling, and just several gifts. Talents, you're born with them. Gifts are given by the Holy Spirit. But you see, a skill is when you work on your gift till it becomes excellent. You see, the difference between talent, gift, and skill is that a skill is not a natural thing. For you to be skillful, you have to work on your gift, work on your talent until you become skillful. You see that? So a skill is a fruit or a product of continuous repetition. That is why I tell people, as important as your gift is, the world doesn't need it. As important as your talent is, the world doesn't need it. What the world needs is your skill. The world wants you to become so excellent, right, The world wants you to become so excellent. The world only listens to excellence. If you even look at the Bible, do you realize? Look at the Bible. Even when you go into the Bible, you're going to notice that um, it looks as though Apostle Paul did much better than Apostle Peter. I don't know if you've noticed that in the Bible. If you check the Bible, it looks as though Apostle Paul did much better than Apostle Peter in terms of accomplishments. Of course. Whereas Apostle Peter actually spent time with Jesus. Do you realize that Apostle Peter actually spent time with Jesus? He lived with Jesus, grew with Jesus, spent a lot of time with Jesus. But guess what? Apostle Paul seemed to have done more. Why? Because Apostle Paul was skilled. You see, that's why I laugh. I laugh so loud when I hear people say God doesn't need your education. I laugh so hard. Now, I'm not saying that if you're not educated, God cannot use you. That's not what I'm saying. You see, but let me tell you something. God needs your education. God needs educated people. Apostle Paul was a writer and he wrote two-thirds of the Bible. Guess what? Apostle Peter could not do that. Why? Because he was not skillful. The difference between Apostle Paul and Apostle Peter was not the anointing, it was the skill. Because the world only listens to your skill. The world wants to see the excellent version of you. Nobody cares that you're gifted. Nobody cares that you're talented. Of they care about your excellence. They care about your delivery. You see that? That is very, very important. So work until you become excellent. Work until the world starts looking for you. You see, don't be content to be good in your city. Don't be content to be good in your country. Think about taking over the nations. Think about Europe in your gift. Think about the US. Why do you want to remain in your city? If you remain in your city, then you have failed. If we remain in our cities, if we remain small, it's an abomination. Jesus Christ was not small. And so we cannot remain small. It's an abomination for us to remain small. Absolute abomination. And you see, I've made up my mind that I'm going to prune my skills so much that I'll be requested in nations. I've made up my mind that I'm going to prune my skills so much. You see, currently I've trained more than 50,000 people across every single African country. Now, you may think that it is just grace. I assure you that it's not just grace. There is a level of work that I've given myself to. There is a level of excellence that I've given myself to. There are standards I've given myself to. And because of these standards, nations have placed demand on the things that are on me. You see that? Now, time will fail me to tell you about Daniel and take other scriptural references. You see, I'm trying to make sure that we don't go above an hour. Right? So I'm not going to go into all of that. So we spoke about skills. That was the first part of our training. Just skills. I was telling you what a skill is, the hard skills, the soft skills, how to improve on your skills. Now let's talk about income. Right? Let's talk about income. What is income? Right? What is income? You see, one of the biggest mistakes I see many people make, is to think that income is money. No. You see, money is a currency, and money is the least form of currency. Do you realize that money, I'm talking about paper, banknotes, and coins, they are the least form of currency? Do you know that? In fact, somebody said, don't be so poor that everything you have is money. Do you realize that? Money is the weakest and the most feeble form of currency. There are currencies that are much more important than money by very far. If all you have is money, I assure you, you are a poor man, you are a poor woman. I tell you, there are things that are more important than money. For example, do you know that your skill is income? Your skill is income. Because From your skill, people can pay you for your skill and you become good at it. Your skill is income. You see that? So sometimes one of the ways to look for money is to become the best in what you do. One of the ways to look for money is to improve on your skill. You see, one of the ways to look for money is to become good in your sector of activity. By improving on your skill, you are improving on your income. You see, that will fail me to share my story with you. You know, when I started my career, you see, I don't know if I can go into all that. But when I started my career, in all sincerity, I used to do some work and they would pay me at the time maybe 10,000, 20,000. I remember a time I was literally earning 30,000 a month. I really wonder how I was living that time. But guess what? As I improved on my skill, people began to pay much more and they began to pay much more with comfort. So your skill is income. You see that? So I'm trying to make sure that you don't only see money as income. Do you know another thing that is income that is far more better than money? It's your relationships. Relationship is far more important than money, by very far more. Let me ask you a question, right? Let me ask you a very funny and simple question. If you need 1 million right now, is there somebody you can call who will give you that 1 million? If you need 500,000 right now, is there someone you can call with a phone call? Hello, sir. Hello, ma. I need 500K right now. And the 500,000 will come in the next 5 minutes. Now, if you don't have those kind of friends, it could be an indication that you have to improve on your relationships. Do you know that having a larger network is income? There are doors that only relationship will open for you. There are doors money will not open for you. Your skill will not open for you. Only relationships will open for you. Now, I can go into a lot more details, but we don't have time. I'm trying to stay within the context of, our theme for the day. But trust me, relationship is very, very important. It will save you. There are companies that have not locked down that have not shut down because of relationships, that have not gone bankrupt because of relationships. Now, time will fail me to explain that. You see that? Now, so relationship is another thing. Another thing that is more important and which is income is your attitude. Do you know that your attitude and your character is income? Do you know that? It is. Do you know there are people that if you put money in their hands, it will not stay, it will not last? I have a lot of friends like that. They can make 1 million today. 2 days later, they are back to zero. I have a lot of people like that. So those kinds of people, it's useless for money coming to them because if it comes to them, it will disappear. They don't know how to use money. They've not been trained on using money. They don't know how to save. They don't know how to manage. They don't know how to invest. You see that? So your attitude, your character is income. If you have a good character, you can be trusted. And when you can be trusted, income will come to you. You see that? So I'm trying to expand your mind so that you realize that income is not just money. It's not just a banknote. It's not just a coin. It is your skill. It is your relationships. You see, there are people I give gift to every year. Special people in my life that I give gift to. Some of them are even in the army. Oh, you will think you don't need someone in the army until you find yourself in a business. You think, oh, maybe I should not have any relationship in the army. Continue praying until you find yourself in a business where just a phone call from somebody can save you. You need quality relationships. Sometimes I tell people, identify key people that you need in your life. Sometimes it can be a general in the army. Sometimes it can be a mayor. Sometimes it can be your father. It can be a special mentor. Every year, give them a gift. That is a form of income. And you will realize it with time. Another form of income is your reputation. Do you know that your reputation is income? Of course it is. When you have a certain reputation, people begin to pay you more for your services. Right now, when people can easily book you for a talk and they pay you maybe $300 per talk, $500 per talk, $1,000 per talk, and even more. When your reputation grows, it becomes easier for you to make income, to make money. Experience is a form of income. You see that money, and when I'm talking about money, I'm talking about banknote. Banknote are the least form of currency. And let me say, like someone said, please don't be so poor that everything you have is money. Never find yourself in a situation where you are so poor that everything you have is money. Very important to note that, right? Now, let's quickly jump into the last part of our conversation, right? I'm doing my best, not to make it very long, right? Now, the last part of our conversation is where I'm going to be showing you how to turn your skill into income. So I've explained what a skill is to you, right? I took time to explain a skill, the hard skill, the soft skill, right? I took time to explain how you can improve on your skill. Then I took time to explain to you what income is. And I tried to explain to you that it's not just money, physical money. There are many more things which are more important than money, which are real forms of income or real forms of currency. Now, practically, right? Practically, how do you turn your skill into an income? Practically, right? How do you turn your skill into an income? How do you do it? How do you turn your skill into an income? Practically, right? The very first thing, of course, is to identify your skill. That's the very first thing. Identify the skill that you have. I'm going to sound like my mentor, Oliver, Mr. Oliver Shaw. I'm going to sound like him again. Take a pen. I know I already asked you to do this, but please take a pen and a paper. Write down your skills. What skill do I have? And you see, don't downplay on any skill. Maybe you know how to smile. Maybe you know how to laugh. Maybe you know how to entertain people. Maybe you know how to dress well. Write it down. I know how to dress well. I know how to smile. I know how to do this. Write down all your skills. That's the first thing. Because you cannot market a skill that you don't know how to identify them. So identify your skill, improve on your skill, be the best, right? You don't want to sell a skill that is not of good quality. So identify, market it. Well, identify and improve on it. Be the best in your field. A lot of people don't realize how intentional I am. I'm very intentional, very, very intentional. You see, there are things I work on that sometimes I even struggle to tell people. For example, there are times I work on my accent, on my accent, because I realize I don't want to find myself in a situation where I'm speaking and those in the US cannot hear what I'm saying. I'm speaking and those in Asia cannot hear what I'm saying. No. So I have to improve on my accent. Sometimes I speak and I put pauses. Have you noticed that I speak with pauses? I'm going to talk and I leave pauses. It's not just because I love pauses. No, it's because I'm anticipating a season where the things that I'm sharing will be interpreted. I'm anticipating a season where I'm going to be in a conference and there will be interpreters, people interpreting in different languages, interpreting in Jamaican languages, interpreting in Chinese languages, interpreting in Portuguese languages. And so I have to be slow. If I'm not slow in speech, they will not be able to hear what I'm saying, or the interpreters will not be able to walk at my pace. So sometimes when speaking, I'm practicing how to speak and slow down. Speak as though there are interpreters. There are a lot of things that come into my speaking that you may not realize. Sometimes I take courses on English language because I want to improve my English, because I want to speak in a way that a global audience can understand. Do you realize that there are people that when they speak, you can know the village they are coming from? That is a sign there is still a problem. If you can speak and they can still tell you're coming from so and so village, it means that you've not standardized your speech. You see, you have to speak so well that people from different races can understand with ease. That is even why there are some jokes I don't crack. You're going to notice that in my speech, there are jokes I don't crack because I may crack that joke and it is making sense to someone in Cameroon, but it's not making any sense to someone in Asia. So I'm not going to crack that joke. You see, so I have to be intentional, even with the jokes that I crack, even with the comments that I make. I have to make sure that the comments that I'm making are universal comments, comments that can be understood by people of all races, by people of all colors. I have to understand that. And that is the level of excellence that Christ is calling us to. You see that? I tell people sometimes, do you know that there are sectors of activity that God would love to communicate with people on, but the challenge is that there are no skillful people in those areas. For example, if God wants to speak chemistry, if God wants to speak physics, if God wants to speak psychology, do we have experts in psychology? That is why you're going to find God speaking psychology to unbelievers, because those are the ones who are ready. Christians sometimes are not. Christians don't speak good English. Do you realize that? I've noticed that, a lot of people, they don't speak good English. They are not excellent in their sector of activity. No level of excellence, no level of improvement, but they are hoping that someday God will put them on a global stage. No, God will not put you on a global stage, sir. He will not put you on a global stage, ma. If not, you will disgrace the very kingdom that he's trying to build. So he will not do that. He will not do that. You're not that excellent yet. And it's not because he hates you, it's because he loves you. He loves you so much not to embarrass you. He doesn't want to embarrass you in public. So he will not put you in a place that you don't have the mental capacity, the physical capacity to manage. He will not put you there. So you will have to grow. You will have to improve on yourself. I've noticed that there are people who can only be local champions because they don't understand global standards. They are not ready. There are things you're praying for. Your skill will take you there, but you're not ready. You're not ready. So there is a need for excellence. Okay, so let me push quickly, right? So I said the first thing was to identify your skill. The second thing is to find out what problem your skill is solving. Now, this is very important, right? People don't buy products. People don't buy products, they buy solutions. It's very important that you know this. Nobody buys a phone. Nobody buys a laptop. Nobody buys a book. Nobody buys a pen. Nobody buys any material. Nobody buys eyeglasses. No, they buy solutions. The reason they buy eyeglasses is because the eyeglasses will help them solve their eye problem. If you tell them from tomorrow that what will solve their eye problem will not longer be eyeglasses, it will be sun and water, guess what? Everybody will buy sun and water because it was never about the eyeglass, it was about the solution. So nobody buys a product, they buy solutions. So the question I want to ask you is, what problem are you solving? That skill that you say you have, what need are you meeting? Because until you are meeting a need, you're not qualified to sell any product. So what need are you meeting? So ask yourself the question, what problem am I solving? What is the problem that I'm solving? Once you define the problem that you're solving, you move to the next step and ask yourself the question, who are the people who have these problems? So, step one, what skill do I have? Step two, what problem am I solving? Step three, who are the people who have these problems? Because the people who have these problems are the people we call your target audience. Your target audience are the ones with the problems that you can solve. So that's the next step. Identify who has the problem. Who are the people who have this problem? What is their age range? Which community can I find them in? How can I find them? Who are they? You see that? You answer that question. You see? Then you move to the fourth step. Now, I'm going to be going into more technical marketing terms, right? Now, I really tried my best to make this really simple. When I teach or when I train, I love training in a way that the layman will understand, right? So I try to avoid grammatical jargons. I try to make it really simple in a way that every Tom, Dick, and Harry is going to have full understanding of the scope of what I'm trying to break down, right? So the next step is to create what we call a minimum viable product. Right now, I know that this is a marketing term, but I'm going to try to explain it in layman's language. What's a minimum viable product? You see, a minimum viable product is the least product that you can produce, right? For example, if you're a public speaker, your minimum viable product can be a 1 hour training on how to withstand fear on stage. So your minimum viable product is that just the barest minimal product that you can send out to the market, right? Usually you send out the minimum viable product for testing. You see that? So once you identify your skill, you define the problem you're solving, you identify your target market, which is who are the people who need those solutions, right? You create a minimum viable product. So when you create that minimum viable product, you now send it out to the market for what we call testing, because you want to see if people actually will buy. So it's called the minimum viable product. So when you send it out, you see whether people buy, whether people are willing to buy, whether they really love the idea. And usually you get feedback. You when the first people buy, you try to get feedback from them. Oh, did you like this product? Did you like my product? Did you like my service? Feedback is very important. And sometimes, guess what? They may tell you, man, your product is nonsense. We don't like it. I tell people many times that the market is the only validator of a product, and now I'm about to wear my business consulting casket, because the market is the only validator of a product. You can think of a product, imagine it, think it is beautiful, think it is amazing. By the time you bring it to the market, you notice it was complete trash. You see? And that's why I told you that in entrepreneurship, you will fail. I tell people that one of the things you have to get used to as an entrepreneur is failure. You will fail. Oh, you will fail. Oh, you will fail. I assure you. You will fail. You will get used to failure. You will fail until, failure will become a thing. And that is why you should not allow your result to define your identity. I learned that early in my life. I learned in my life early enough, right, that if I do something and it fails, I'm not the one that failed. It is that thing that I did that failed. Oh, I learned this thing early in my life and it saved me. At first I used to think that if I do a business and it fails, it means I'm a failure. No, 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 no. I've grown. I've grown. If I do something and it fails, I've learned how to separate things from my identity. I can do a business and it fails. It doesn't mean I'm a failure. It means the business has failed. You see that? So you send it out to the market, right? Send it and test it. Try to get feedback. So that's the next step. The next step is actually testing. Testing means that try, put it out, see how people are receiving it. Now, if you notice that, now, first case scenario, everybody might say, well, this is nonsense, we don't want it, right? If the market doesn't want it, good and fine. Now, some people may like it and they suggest improvements. We like your product, but we think you should improve on this. We think you should improve on that, right? Jot down the feedbacks. They said this, they said I should improve here. They said, okay, cool. Jot down the feedbacks and go improve it and come and present it again, right? Now, and in another scenario, everybody will be like, wow, this is beautiful stuff. This guy is doing amazing. Okay, cool stuff. If the market validates your product, you're good to go, right? It is when your product has been validated by the market. Now, I may not have time to be able to explain sales, right? Sales is a topic on its own. But you see, when your product is validated by the market, that's when you create a marketing strategy, right? A marketing strategy that will now allow you to put out your products in bulk and in huge quantity. You see, that's the next step, which is the sixth step, creating an effectual marketing strategy. Now, there are different ways to market your products. Now, do you know the mistake that many entrepreneurs do? The mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs do is that they skip step one, they skip step two, they skip step three, they skip step four, they skip step five, and they start with step six. So they create a product they have not tested, they have not created a minimum viable product, and they are running to the market and they are trying to create a marketing strategy. What am I going to do? How can you be creating a marketing strategy for a product that the market has not accepted? So you create a minimum viable product, send it to the market accepts it first before you now create a strategy or an entry strategy. Now, I don't want to go into some, bogus terms, right, or terminology. So I'm going to stop there. So you create a marketing strategy, and then the last step is the implementation. Now, there are many ways, there are many marketing strategies. They could be offline, they could be online. Offline means that maybe you might want to start a store somewhere, online means you might want to use digital platforms like social media, like Google. You might want to have a website, you might want to create an e-commerce platform. There are just many ways, you can find your way around marketing strategies. And then when you create the marketing strategy, you implement the strategy. That's the next step. Implementing the strategy means you bring together your team, you bring together your guys, share the vision with them, give them roles, and you start making your sales, right? Now, usually when you start making sales as a business successfully, the next step is to scale the business, right? But then scaling the business is going to be a discussion that we'll have another time. Because once a business starts succeeding, the next phase is scaling that business. You don't scale a business that doesn't succeed, right? Scaling actually means amplifying. So if a business is not working and you scale it, it means you are amplifying negative results. That's why you only scale a business that is working. But then that's a discussion for another time, right? So yeah, we've come to the end of our class for today, right? I did my best to do it in an hour, right? I didn't want to cross an hour. So thank you so much, right, for sticking in to this session. Lenyu Christina, I can see you. It says we are born with talent. We work on skills. Awesome. Thank you. So thank you very much for participating and attending this session. Thank you so much. I hope that you learned something, right? And I'll be very happy to see your comments, right? Drop in the comments something you learned, something that stood out, what you're going back home with. Just drop it in the comments, right? Thank you so much. And by the way, I want to use this opportunity to say a big thank you to my mentor, right, Oliver Shum, for this opportunity to share with the community, right? Oliver is such an inspiring guy. When you go through his social media, you look at the work he's doing, even in the US, you know, even right from here, man, is doing so much. And, you know, I want to really appreciate his efforts and just say thank you. Thank you so much for the amazing work that he's doing. I'm so grateful to have met someone like you. I'm so happy for this opportunity. Thank you so much. And I think the next thing is to say bye bye. Thank you. This was Simply Sikadi from Yaoundé, Cameroon. Bye bye. Thank you very much.